Did that satisfy you? We shall see. Michigan defeats Wisconsin 38-17 with a big second half performance in Madison. And now Michigan goes back on the road to take on Nebraska. We got our crew of Desmond Upshaw. We got Dre Artis on the line. As always, you can catch them after each and every Michigan game right here at the Voice of College Football Michigan. We're also simulcasting on the Big Ten channel as well as the Nebraska channel this week. So leave your comments, your questions, your debate topics, all of it for us for the next hour. Gentlemen, how we doing?
Well, going well.
Doing very good. Michigan's undefeated, and they are rolling to Nebraska for a big night game, and it'll be interesting. It'll be a really interesting game for them. I think another challenge, a team that before the season started, I think we all would have penciled in an easy win, and Scott Frost has at least recently kind of gotten things, gotten that ship kind of steadied a little bit. So this will be definitely different than what I would say most Michigan fans thought it would be coming into the season. And it'll be a pretty interesting challenge on Saturday.
Yeah. This is a Michigan team that's, playing some really good football right now. They're playing disciplined football, and they don't really do a lot of penalties. They don't really beat themselves. So up to this point, the only questions that they've had to answer is, how diverse they are in terms of different ways to win games. Can they win games? We knew they could win games on the run. Could they win games with the pass? Can they win games if certain guys get hurt on defense? Those are the type of questions when you have Big Ten championship aspirations that you need to see a team get through week by week. And this past Saturday was one of those proving points, and they passed with flying colors. There wasn't a lot of it's never negativity, but big critiques from that game. So it's a good first step against a quality opponent.
Yeah, so I had a number of questions coming into the game, the same questions we discussed last week, and I think they answered those next steps. Big win on the road, place they hadn't won. There are obvious questions about how good Wisconsin is. Probably not the type of Wisconsin team that we've seen in the past, but still a pretty quality opponent, definitely a quality defense. So they win the big game in a environment in which has been difficult for them recently. They didn't necessarily run the ball, but if you look at what Wisconsin's doing to running offenses, what they're doing to Penn State and Notre Dame in particular, Michigan actually was fairly effective, at least effective enough to keep the defense honest running the football. They didn't gash Wisconsin, but I don't know that anyone's going to gash them for big plays in the running game. But they were running effectively enough to at least set up the pass. And then because they couldn't gash Wisconsin in the running game, they turned to the pass, and they were extremely effective for a fairly limited number of passes. They threw it a little bit more, 260 in the air, 3 touchdowns, no picks. I think you'll take that just about every game.
Yeah, for sure. And even for, Wisconsin to shut down Notre Dame the way that they did. I mean, Notre Dame with Kyron Williams, he's a really good running back. And if I had to guess, he's probably a first-round draft pick type running back. So, it's not as if the guys that, in the run games that Wisconsin is stopping and shutting down are just, any old Joe. Like, these are quality opponents. So, Michigan they stayed committed to who they are. And I think, although it wasn't the usual, 150, 200, 300 yards, I think it's a good sign that, just because we weren't extremely successful running the ball, they stuck with it. They really stuck to their guns of who they are. And then, too, when they needed to throw the ball, they did a really good job. They did a fantastic job. And that was one of the, probably the biggest question we had after, the first couple games was, hey, it sounds like we're pretty comfortable with who this run game is and the O-line, but what is it going to look like when you get stymied or when you're not as effective as you usually are? What's plan B, and what does plan B look like? And I think they did a really good job with not only Cade McNamara, but also bringing in JJ McCarthy. He threw a really good, deep ball up the right sideline. And, that's what you're going to need when it comes to, winning these big games. Winning on the road is as much as you'd like to think that you'll be able to run the ball at will. Once when you start playing quality teams, that's just not going to be the case. And although Michigan was effective, the pass game is still going to need to come through. And they did a really good job of it on Saturday. So, from what I've seen from Nebraska, it's probably going to have to be more of the same as far as game plan wise. This Saturday is, you want to still stick to your guns, but you're going to need a couple of those deep shots, deep attempts to be able to loosen up the Nebraska defense.
No, at least to find ways to move the chains. Like when you're getting 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. Maybe you have a holding call right now. You're second and what your 1st and 20. Now you need 20 yards. You need to find a way, to chip away at that. And that's where it's not about having an explosive passing game, but just an effective passing game, having, the ability to hit an out route, hit a curling route, right? Be able to find some quick bubble screens, some quick progressions your quarterback can make, and quick and easy throws your quarterback can make, just to kind of keep the defense honest and be able to move the chains in different ways. And then, like they did with the flea flicker versus Wisconsin, if you catch the safeties cheating up a little bit, trying to play the run, you can try to take a few shots down the field and being able to, hit some of those shots. You won't hit all of them. That's not realistic, but if you can hit a couple, that's the main thing, right? And that changes the entire dynamic of your offense. And so those were the type of things they showed on Saturday, that they can be creative, they can find different ways and different looks to give a defense. And another thing that I was impressed with, guys, is earlier on in the game, they had some miscommunications, in the passing game. There's a couple of times where the receivers didn't sit in the zone like Cade expected them to. There's a few throws that Cade underthrew. Some drop passes. I think the first pass Cade threw to Cornelius Johnson, it was a little bit behind him, but it was catchable, but he dropped it, right? And it was to first game on the road, not really having a lot of repetitions in the passing game, which we've harped on that point week by week, and it not getting up to the most bright start, but to stick with it and eventually find ways to be effective with it was very impressive to me, and I think will pay dividends going forward. It was kind of like that first exhale. And I told Desmond this in our post game show, that I felt like that flea flicker. You kind of felt like the Cade in the office kind of took a deep breath, like we can hit an explosive play, right? Because not only do they hear all the external noise about the lack of a passing game, internally, it's only natural to have those kind of questions too, because you can't cheat gameplay, right? You can practice it all you want to, but unless you've done it in the game, that's a whole different animal. And they were able to do it. So I'll be interested to see how much they improve this Saturday, because I think they will try to expand more and more throughout the season.
We've got Michigan, Nebraska post game right here, the Voice of College Football on our Michigan channel, courtesy Desmond, courtesy Dre, right after the Michigan, Nebraska game on the Michigan channel. Get the maize and blue side here. Also on the Nebraska channel, Husker fans, you can check it out there with Zach and with Chris. Get the Nebraska take after the Michigan, Nebraska game over on the Nebraska channel. And we've got them all working right now between the Michigan, Nebraska, and Big Ten channels. So got a question coming in from Tim. And because Wisconsin's struggling so much on offense, really they had a glimmer of efficiency, a glimmer of explosiveness at the end of the first half. Graham Mertz hit 2 throws right at the end of the first half that I thought, okay, that's the 5-star guy right there. Absolutely. Like, those were lasers. Those were beautiful throws. his offensive line finally protected him, and he finally, showed what he's worth. Well, that was it. And then obviously and unfortunately, he was knocked out of the game. And this Wisconsin offensive line isn't anything close to what they typically are. So more questions were answered for me on the offensive side for Michigan against a quality defense than by the Michigan defense. But of course, the defense has been consistent the entire year. Now they face better athletes that are actually playing fairly well. I don't want to give Nebraska too much credit because, as Desmond checked out last night on our Nebraska show, people were getting a little too giddy about Nebraska football. And I was trying to say, okay, hey, it was Northwestern. They confirmed to me last week they are the worst team in the Big Ten. Calm down. It's great that you didn't just slop around with the 10 or 13 point win. I get it. You put the hammer down like you should. It was impressive from that standpoint, but who have you ever beaten? Okay. We're still waiting for that win. So anyway, Dre, we'll start with you. Just in regards to your confidence in terms of Michigan facing a mobile quarterback, Adrian Martinez making a lot of plays with his legs.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not that concerned for Michigan. Because for one, it's due to Adrian Martinez's own issues. He's been, and I know he's been playing a lot better lately, but he's been turnover prone ever since he took his first snap at Nebraska. And and one thing that this defense has shown all year, and it's been spearheaded by Aiden Hutchinson, is how much havoc they do in the backfield. Strip sacks, tackles for loss. I mean, they are absolutely disruptive at the point of attack on the line of scrimmage. And then you got your linebackers like Josh Ross, coming downhill with reckless abandonment. And I just think that's one thing I'm not really that concerned about. I mean, for one, you have to choose between Michigan's defensive line and Nebraska's offensive line, I'm definitely getting the edge to Michigan's defensive line. And so, if Adrian was to get, somehow scramble and try to break the pocket and try to make a play, our front seven, with Josh Ross, they've been pretty fast with, covering a lot of ground. That I don't really worry about that too much. I think our defense is too athletic to be exposed by Adrian Martinez. And another part of that is I don't think, even if Adrian Martinez is able to, buy himself a couple extra seconds, I don't think Nebraska has the athletes on the outside to get the separation needed for Adrian to take advantage of that. So that's actually one aspect I'm not too worried about going to Saturday.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to number one, a good defense and especially defending something like a mobile quarterback, is I think of having playmakers on each level of your defense. And I think Michigan has that with, Aiden Hutchinson. I think he gets, a lot of praise, as he should. He has just been dynamic of a defensive end. And I think Dre and I talked about it before. You could arguably say that he is the best defensive end that Michigan has had in recent history. We talked about it that maybe Lamar Woodley, would probably have an argument in there, but nonetheless, it's an argument. So you've got, Hutchinson up front, you've got Josh Ross in the middle. And, when Ross was out the second half of the Rutgers game, like you saw how different, the run game or Michigan's run defense was. And I'm not going to attribute 100% of that to Josh Ross being out. But, when you're talking about a middle linebacker, it definitely makes a difference, in there. And then obviously on the back end, you've got, Dax Hill that, they move around quite a bit. He was on some blitzes last week, was able to actually knock Graham Mertz out of the game with a big hit. So, when I think about, good defenses, I think about having, guys on three levels. And then also too with Martinez, sometimes when you're, a quarterback trying to extend plays, what you're doing is giving, guys like Aiden Hutchinson more time to be able to, to get to you. So it's, a lot of times you'll be able to run out of trouble, but, there's quite a few times where you might end up running into trouble too. So, the longer you spend back there, that's more time that you're given to, big number 97. And And also too, like I said, Michigan, Mike McDonald does a great job of drawing up blitzes and pressures. So it'll be really important for Martinez to take care of the ball. I think that's probably going to be public enemy number one, because I think if Nebraska turns the ball over, I think they're going to find themselves in a world of trouble pretty quickly.
Lucas, appreciate you being here. Lucas is looking for a breakout game from Blake Corum. I don't know. Define breakout game. Him running for 125 yards. Is that not good enough? Or what are we looking for? We're looking for like a Michigan record book stuff?
Yeah.
What do we want?
When I see that, I'm thinking more of what I expect from Blake Corum. I look at him as he's the home run threat for this offense, right? He's not the guy who's going to be the bell cow. That's not really his role. His role is he can beat you if you hand the ball out to him. He can beat you if he catches the ball out the backfield. He's a home run threat. So, to me, I would consider a breakout game a touchdown in both rushing and receiving. Maybe he has 85 rushing yards, I don't know, 50, 60 receiving yards, both touchdowns, chunk plays, right? Not a lot of attempts. But, because what happens is when he's able to do that, it changes the entire dynamic of the Michigan rushing attack. Because, you see him back there, you're afraid he's going to pop one. Now you're creeping your safeties up, and then now that opens up the passing game, right? And then, he beats you a couple of times. Now your defense is a little bit tired. Now you bring in Simon Haskins. He's more of the bell cow, going up the gut. It changed the entire dynamic. And I think that's part of why you haven't seen the explosive plays in the Michigan rushing attack lately, because Blake hasn't been able to find his groove like he had the first couple of weeks. And a lot of that's due to competition, of course, now, but still. So, yeah, I think that's why I would consider a breakout game. And do I think this is the week for it? It's possible. I mean, I haven't seen anything from Blake to indicate that he's regressed. I just think that he hasn't quite found the opportunities, there, maybe not the holes or the right play calls to utilize his strengths as we did the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I would say this probably isn't the game for him to break out. I mean, for Michigan fans, we've seen what Blake Corum can do and his production. But I just look at, what Nebraska has done recently just this year, against Michigan State. Like Kenneth Walker is a really, really good running back, and they were able to hold him in check. And Oklahoma, they had a couple of running backs that they mixed in there, but I know Kennedy Brooks is really good. I think he's a guy who opted out last year, but he's a really good running back. And he had, something in the neighborhood of like 15 carries for like in the 80, 85, yard range. So, they're not.
You love to see that. You love to see that because you don't like Lincoln Riley. But
that's another discussion. But it's just, Nebraska has a really, a solid, run defense. They're not a team that's just letting, guys run wild. So. Not that it's not possible for Corum to have a breakout game, because a 60-yard run, that changes drastically your production and what that final number looks like. But as far as likely, I don't see him going for 150 and 2 touchdowns. I think he'll be effective, but as far as breakout games, I'm not sure this is the week for that, and not to look ahead, but I think that's probably going to be next week.
If I'm putting this together correctly, Dre, it doesn't sound like you're too concerned with Nebraska.
I'm not. And look,
I got that feel.
And if there are any Nebraska fans watching, it's not so much a diss or saying that you guys, they aren't playing better football. They are, but if you want me to choose, who's the obvious better team, who's playing the best football on all ends of the the field, offense, defense, special teams, it's Michigan. It's not even close. They're the more talented team, and they're playing the better football. So I'm the only aspect that Nebraska may have an advantage is the fact that it's at home at night. Other than that, I'm not too concerned because I just think that Michigan's that much better. You got, and sometimes there are weeks like that. Even if your team is playing better, I think that Nebraska's outmatched in this game.
It's interesting. I think if Michigan brings just the energy, the discipline, like if they come out focused, like really every game that they have played this year, like they haven't had any of those, kind of sleepy, walking, kind of the Walking Dead early on,
Right.
games. They've come out like with the right amount of energy. They may not have executed at a 10 out of a 10, to out of the gates, but it hasn't been a game where they've come out just kind of sleepwalking a little bit. They've been focused. They've been, locked in. And I think if they come out that way, I think they'll be in really good shape. I think it may be similar to like a Wisconsin as far as early on, being a pretty close game. But I do think Michigan is going to, will win on Saturday. But like you said, playing a night game and from being on yesterday's stream with the Nebraska team, it sounds like, that stadium's going to be rocking and it's going to be a heck of an atmosphere. And, not to discount Wisconsin's at all, but it's going to be another one. It's going to be another tough atmosphere that Michigan's going to have to bring it.
The problem goes back to Adrian Martinez in the turnover bug. I mean, look, you are who you are, this far into your collegiate career, and he's always, ever since I think he started as either a true freshman or a redshirt freshman for Nebraska. He's always had problems with turnovers. A very talented kid, dual threat quarterback, but he's always struggled with trying to extend plays or not knowing, not having that the right internal clock, knowing when to go down for a sack, when to throw the ball away. He's always struggled with that. And when you take a defense that is as rampant and dynamic like the Michigan defense is right now, the way that Ojabo and Aiden Hutchinson are playing, it's just not a recipe for success for that Nebraska offense. And I don't care how rampant and hype your crowd is. There's nothing more debilitating than your quarterback throwing a pick or fumbling the ball. Like that will silence your home crowd very quickly. And I just think that's I can pretty much guarantee that you can pencil that happening once or twice, that Adrian Martinez is going to have a couple turnovers. I mean, you saw in the Wisconsin game. If you're talking team to team, I think Wisconsin's a better team than Nebraska. Now, I think that Adrian Martinez has been playing better than Graham Mertz lately, but you saw how debilitating it was when Graham Mertz, you could feel it in the air. The Wisconsin fans were uneasy after the first drive, it felt like, when, because of the way Graham Mertz played against Notre Dame and in the weeks beforehand, then of course the Penn State game in which he made 2 turnovers on the doorstep of the end zone, so it doesn't take long for that momentum, even if you're at home, to switch, especially when quarterback play historically, at least recent history, has been very spotty with one player being Adrian Martinez. So just be careful, Nebraska fans, with, thinking you're ready for this one.
Ooh. Right, you're flying high on that 5-0, confidence.
Hold on now. No, hold on. Now, I'm not. Ain't nobody saying that we bring on the Buckeyes or we bring on let's go to the whiteout in Penn State. Now, once we had those shows, based on
man, you're sounding like just roll the footballs out. We'll be fine. No big deal.
No, I have no fear for this week. No fear. And like I said, it's not trying to be disrespectful to Nebraska. I think Michigan's playing that much better right now.
Vegas seems to think it's going to be a pretty close game.
They do.
I can see
Very
that.
Close.
I can see
I
that.
mean, it's essentially. I mean, I know the NFL is basically like the home team gets roughly 3 points. I think this one was about like 3.5. I think Nebraska's favored. So I mean, you can put kind of the home field advantage in there. But I was very surprised to see the spread is as low as it was. With Michigan being 5-0 and Nebraska, I think, just got to 3-3. But the interesting part is Vegas is rarely way off. Now they were off with the Michigan game. I think they had think Wisconsin was favored in that game, if I'm not
They were
mistaken.
favorite. Michigan was underdogs.
Yep. So, you think of a team being favored and losing by what was it, 38-17, something like that, like losing by 3 touchdowns. So it's, I mean, obviously Vegas isn't always right, but they may know something that we don't know. So
Well,
we'll
I mean,
see.
I think part of it, I think is Michigan's own doing when it comes to their passing game. Like I think everybody saw that. Like this team, was playing, was winning games, but they were very one-dimensional. And then the Rutgers game, the Rutgers game happened, and you saw Michigan struggle, right? Especially being at home. And I really, even though they came out in the first half, they passed it well, but then everything went down the drain in the second half. I think that's the narrative that Vegas and a lot of people who are, even myself, still have, are a little bit cautious of in terms of the longevity. The not longevity, the trajectory of this, how this team could finish the season is how dynamic his offense can be, how diverse his offense can be. And if you think about Nebraska, they do have a decent front seven. If they're able to slow down the Michigan rushing attack, which I think is a very strong possibility. This is a different environment. We talked to Mark, Des, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. How does Cade handle adversity on the road? He did it pretty well, Wisconsin, right? But remember, Michigan was never down against Wisconsin. What happens if Nebraska punches Michigan in the mouth? What happens then? And then Nebraska, it is loud, and it is a night game. And how does Cade respond to that? And so I think that's one of those unknowns that people are being a little bit cautious of.
Dewey is online here with a prediction that the Huskers win it by 14.
Wow.
Dewey's a Nebraska fan, so got to be cautious about those biased predictions, of course, coming from the fan base. But that's why we're here. Take your comments, your questions, your predictions, whatever you want to throw there in the live chat. Lagartha, Nebraska is the worst offensive line in the Big Ten, surrendering 18 quarterback sacks. What could possibly go wrong?
I feel like Northwestern's offensive line has entered the group chat. Like I don't know. That's tough. I mean, 18 quarterback sacks. I think that's kind of part of what we talked about earlier. When you have a quarterback who likes to scramble around and mobile, sometimes you run into trouble. So I only time will tell. But if that is the case, that they have the worst O-line in the Big Ten, it's going to be a very long day for Adrian Martinez, because Michigan's D-line is pretty legit, led by Aiden Hutchinson. So,
and don't forget about Ojabo. Ojabo had 2.5 sacks, man, against Wisconsin. He was this, and that is the real benefit and the impact of a game changer like Aiden Hutchinson is that you have to concentrate so much of your offensive line and your tight ends and your resources on making sure, okay, this guy cannot blow up this play, that it opens up the rest of your pass rushers and defensive players to have one-on-one matchups, or maybe go free on a blitz here or two. So when you think about that, man, and a struggling offensive line that Nebraska has had, it's just not a recipe for success. It's just not, especially for a quarterback that has the turnover bug. I mean, how quick if you're already having a kid who struggles with decision making, and then now if he has guys in his face all day, that's not going to end well, right? Even if he has the best intentions, like I've been playing better, I learned how to get the ball out quickly, eventually those bad habits show up. I don't see all of a sudden Nebraska's offensive line doing the best blocking job that any of the other opponents that Michigan has played this year.
There's not many quarterbacks that play well to shaky that get better with pressure. Like you know what I mean? It really doesn't matter who it is. Any quarterback, NFL quarterbacks, like when you get pressure, consistently, like performance in general gets worse. I mean, we got elite of the elite guys like an Aaron Rodgers that, that's not the case, but it's, with pressure, I think, Martinez is probably not going to get better, but only time will tell. I think that's the best part with football is, by Saturday around midnight, we'll find out.
And I don't like this. I feel like I'm coming off, as like, some cocky Michigan fan. Like, and I'm not. If anything, people say I'm too negative. It's just I really do believe this is one of those matchups where Michigan has a lot playing into their hand. That's truly how I look at it. So don't get twisted out here. I'm not some slappy.
What gave it away? Me being like, wow, like you are super confident about this. Or Mark being like, seems like you're not really concerned with Nebraska. And you're like, no, I'm not at all. Nothing. Which one of those like kind of gave it away of like, I seem a little confident. You seem very confident.
Both of you actually. I was like, I wonder how I'm coming off here. No, but I have no problem. If I had a legitimate concern, I would bring it up. I mean, I think one thing that would be interesting, we probably will go into this, is seeing how different potential weapons on this offense show themselves. Is Roman Wilson maybe a legit one or number two? Is he a go-to guy? Is Cornelius Johnson continue? I think he had 2 touchdowns overall, the flea flicker, and I think he had one he caught in the goal line later in the game. Is he coming into his own here? Same thing with Eric All. Like are those guys starting to find their confidence, find their groove? Because if so, then that's another building block, right? That can help this team get to where they need to be. So that's something that I'm interested to see as well.
Yeah, I don't know if Wilson is a legit, second option. I think, Corey had dropped that question, and I think I'm not sure he is. I think that was more of a one-off because my guess ranking system would be Cornelius Johnson, the number one, Sanders still would be that second option, and then probably, kind of Wilson, All, Corum, kind of a plethora of kind of that third, that third tier or third option.
Mm-hmm.
But, like you said, you never know. I think Cornelius and Sanders still both started a little shaky last week. I think they improved, but, but I still think Cornelius is probably your number one option, but, only time will tell. We'll definitely see what happens and who is that go-to receiver going to be.
So Adrian Martinez turnover problems that Dre has alluded to are well documented in the past. He hasn't thrown a ton of interceptions, but it's been the combination of interceptions and fumbles. And he had a big one in week 0 against Illinois. He was feeling the rush. He was stepping up in the pocket, kind of indecisive as to whether he was going to take off with it or just step up in the pocket. He should have known that the clock was running down on him in terms of the pass rush, and he gets a strip sack for a scoop and score going the other direction. I can't think of any other costly fumbles out of him since week 0. Not that he hasn't had any. I just can't think of any. He only has 2 picks and 150 pass attempts, so he's taking care of the ball pretty well throwing it this season. All right, let's get the Husker perspective on in here from Greg Peterson from Husker Online. Hey, Greg, how's it going?
Hey, guys, what's going on?
Hey, Greg, how you doing? I checked you out yesterday, man. You do a great job.
Hey, thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
No problem.
So, Greg, we got Des next to me. We got Dre next to you.
Nice to meet you guys. Des, Dre, nice to meet you guys.
You guys can mix it up on the big matchup. So, Greg, I'll turn it over to you in regards to any kind of opening statement on what this game means to Nebraska and what you think how it could play out, or if you want to start out by asking these guys questions about Michigan.
Well, actually, I mean, I was there backstage for a little bit, and I was listening to you guys' conversation about Adrian Martinez, and he really had, for Michigan fans that haven't been paying attention, Mark hit it on the head. He has not turned the ball over since week 0. Anything costly, nothing that's cost anything at all, and he's playing at his highest level since he came in as a freshman right now, and you guys haven't seen you guys haven't played against a quarterback yet this year like Adrian Martinez. So, yeah, I can't wait to see this matchup. I'm kind of speechless at the moment because I get goosebumps when I start thinking about this matchup. We've not seen Michigan here in Lincoln under the Jim Harbaugh era at all, and it'll be my first time seeing Michigan in person under Coach Harbaugh. So I'm super excited, and it's going to be a night game, and it's going to be one of the greatest atmospheres, that you're going to see in college football, I think, Saturday night. So hopefully both of you guys are going to be there and witness the whole thing there in the press box.
No credentials for me. No credentials. No. Greg, so I've got a question, Greg. I took a look at like some numbers and things like that. Is there any like concern with the amount of times that Adrian Martinez like carries the ball? Like, cause you know what I mean? Like I saw like they were running some option and things like that. And, when you start to look at I would say at least a talent level pretty close to yours, like usually, the quarterback runs kind of get scaled back a bit. You know what I mean? When you're playing like a more physical team, like, does that concern you at all, or you're not too worried about that?
No, absolutely not. That's the way Nebraska is built right now. It's about the running game and the running game opening up the passing game. And the biggest difference that, what I'm getting out of your question is in the previous couple of years, you've seen Adrian Martinez kind of running out of necessity. This year, there's more actual designed runs as opposed to those scramble runs trying to make something out of nothing. Not to say that he's done that. If you look at the Buffalo game, he had a big, long, 74, 75-yard run that was pretty amazing. But Nebraska's, they finally have figured out what the formula is, how to be successful in the Big Ten, which obviously you guys are well aware of, that it's exactly doing what you're doing. So Nebraska's going to come out, and it's going to be a physical, just big-time physical game. And Nebraska's going to run the ball. Michigan's going to run the ball. And, whoever's going to win this game, it's going to be, when you catch the other team off guard and hit a big play downfield in the passing game. So I think these two teams are really, really evenly matched going into this matchup. And, I'm expecting a bloodbath. I said it last night on our show. I think it's going to just be a bloodbath, and whoever's got the ball at the end of the game is going to win this game, in my opinion.
Let me jump in real quick just to correct something, because I started the conversation on Adrian Martinez regarding turnovers, and I forgot one big one he had against Michigan State in overtime, interception in the red zone. So I was just kind of blowing through the stats, remembering the scoop and score against him against Illinois in week 0, and just read off the 2 interceptions and 150 pass attempts.
But that's at the end of the game, though. That didn't cost you a possession. That kind of a costly turnover type thing.
Yeah. So I again, with the comment made by Jonathan, he was just reminding me that Adrian Martinez did throw an interception in overtime.
Yeah, Greg, I would love to get your perspective on this. One thing that's interesting about this matchup that I don't really hear people talking about is I think both programs have a lot of parallels, especially going into this season. You're talking about 2 homegrown coaches. They were both the messiahs, if you will, going back home. And I think Harbaugh and Michigan got up to a better start. But in terms of how, like, the middle point that they're both at, I think, or you can argue, some people thought Harbaugh was at the end, including myself, going to this season.
Husker fans think the same as for Frost.
For sure. It's been a rocky road for both coaches, to say the least, and probably nowhere near both coaches have met exact expectations. I think one of the things that this stuck with me, especially, and I know they've been playing a lot better ball since Illinois, but when I was watching the game against Illinois this year, and it just dawned on me like the culture at Nebraska, and has Scott Frost lost that locker room and lost the juice in that program, or has not been able to inject juice into that program? I mean, have you seen that turned around? Do you see the belief out of those guys and they playing for him?
Yeah, you should actually go back and watch our show last night here.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We throw week 1 or week 0 out of that. That Illinois game was a debacle. Since then, you know, I've been quoted several times off of this. I'm sure it'll start going crazy again on Twitter. But yeah, the culture has absolutely changed. It's done a complete 180. You know, week 1, things were down, but these guys know that they're a good team and a very talented team, and they got a defense that's playing at an incredible level right now. And there's just a few mistakes that have, you know, they've shot themselves in the foot a few times here, and they should be 6-0. In their minds, they believe they're a 6-0 team. So, you know, you throw out that Illinois game in week 0 when things just it was kind of like a preseason game. You're trying to you know, get the kinks out and everything, and it was an embarrassing loss to a very, you know, quite frankly, a bad Illinois team. But things have turned around so much just here. I mean, since the performance in Norman at Oklahoma, the light bulb turned on, and people are happy and people expect to win now. You know, they gave the game at Michigan State. They gave that game away. They had that game won, and they know that. And the defense has played well enough to win all these games, and they're not blaming any mistakes on special teams or offense. They don't place any blame on that. And you know, they'll just say, okay, next team up, another nameless, faceless opponent next week. Doesn't matter where they're ranked, who they are. But you know, they're a proud football team. They expect to win. They expect to win, you know, without much problem, actually, in their minds. That's just the read that I'm getting from the program right now. Everybody is fired up, and you know, they can still end up having a very positive season if they can play the kind of football that they think they're capable of playing, and that we've seen here lately. You know, if you eliminate the mistakes on the special teams and the offense, this is kind of a scary team. I don't think anybody really wants to play Nebraska right now, especially at home and especially at night.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of the things as far as kind of the psyche and the culture that you were mentioning, I mean, the same exact thing could be said about Michigan and just, you know, their feeling with the culture. And, you know, for Jim Harbaugh, it feels different, you know, and I'm not sure I've talked or, you know, we had a Michigan fan in the chat that would say, you know, that it doesn't, you know, because and I'm not sure what it was, you know, previously, but it just seems that these guys have a good group of leadership. You know, guys that are unselfish, like just laser focused on, you know, the process and the plan.
Don't blame one another about anything.
Yep. And to me, the difference that I saw was the first time I saw it was actually Big Ten Media Day. You know, Mark and I talked about it, but it was the first time that, you know, Jim Harbaugh was in front of a microphone, and he's been at Michigan where it just wasn't any goofy stuff. Like it was, you know what I mean? Clear, concise. All of the guys that he brought with him, Josh Ross, and I can't remember, you know, I think Ronnie Bell was there as well. You know, those guys talked about just building a culture and just have, you know what I mean? Like doing things the right way, like not focusing on the end result, but the process. So a lot of parallels there. To kind of switch gears a little bit, if you had to pick one guy for Michigan that you would be concerned about coming up for Saturday, what guy would you pick that, you know, would be a concern?
No question, that's your big time first round draft pick pass rusher. You know, that's the guy that scares the hell out of I think everybody on the Nebraska side. And you know, I saw that graphic that you guys had up talking about how horrible the Nebraska offensive line is, and you know, they made a few changes last week, and hopefully they have things in check right now. But I don't think you can prepare for a guy like that. So, you're going to do some scheming to try to, keep him out of the game, and vice versa. I think Michigan's going to have to do the same thing too against some of Nebraska's pass rush. And I know how Michigan likes to change things up. They run a lot of the same thing. They have a lot of different schemes and just show you different looks and basically running the same thing and just pounding it down on you. And Nebraska's trying to mimic that right now, basically. And I think you've seen them working on that because they've got that option play now in their arsenal that they've been spending a lot of time on. And this whole thing, I think, keeps melding back together with all the parallels with both of these programs when you got two head coaches that, were quarterback legends at their own schools, and they've come back and they have not meet in the fans' eyes. They haven't met expectations, and I think Michigan was a little bit better off when Harbaugh took over than Nebraska was when Frost took over, and Nebraska's had to dig themselves out of a hole, and you're talking about two of the 9 schools in history that have over 900 wins. And so this is a special week and a special weekend for college football in my mind. And it's great. I love this. I think we talked about this last night, Mark. This should be a game. I mean, there's some Big Ten matchups that should be a yearly matchup in my mind. And Michigan and Nebraska should always be one of those that are played every year.
Greg's got about 10 of those, though. And I was trying to explain to him last night, it's not logistically possible.
Right.
I was listening last night and heard that too. And I was like,
Ohio State, Nebraska, and Penn State, Nebraska. I don't know if Scott Frost wants that every year, though.
No, he doesn't. Kidding me? He wants to play Maryland and Rutgers every year, right?
Well, I just think both programs are even though they're parallels, they're at different aspirations. I think Nebraska, to Greg's point, they had to dig themselves out of a hole. They've had to establish their identity. In Michigan to a certain point as well, even though they've had better highs in terms of having the 10, 11 win seasons and stuff like that, but definitely the lack of faith in their program from the fan base perspective. You've seen, and I know the landscape of college football is like this in general with the transfer portal, but you've seen a lot of guys lead the program lately as well, as including coaching staff. Harbaugh gutted, his staff and brought in a influx of youth there as well, and one of the main additions is Mike Macdonald. And, the outstanding job he did this year with, doing something that's not easy, going one off season, going from a 4-3 to a 3-4 scheme. And, at least, very hard to do, and essentially getting really good results right away. You got to give him his credit, and it should be interesting to see, because me and Desmond talk about this all the time with a 3-4 scheme. If your linebackers aren't, being disciplined with their run fits, you can get gashed in the rushing attack. Tell us about, Nebraska's rushing attack, guys that we should be, looking out for from a Michigan perspective.
Well, I mean,
I heard the Yankee last night.
Husband knows. I mean, there's a brand new beast out on the field that got let out of his cage last Saturday, and Jacques Yant is he is a pretty scary looking guy. He goes. He just dropped 20 pounds, and he's at about 235 right now. And he's a beast, and he's got moves, and he can run. And we've been waiting to see him. And that was a thing that he was heavy coming into fall camp, and he finally just dropped the weight and got his chance. And he went off for $126 or whatever it was last week in his first real game action. And then Ramir Johnson, they're already claiming, or calling themselves Thunder and Lightning right now, with Ramir and Jacquez. And Ramir's a little guy, but he's a fast guy, and he catches the ball. And I think they've taken over now this Nebraska rotation at running back. You asked me this question a couple of weeks ago. I'm probably telling you Marquis Stepp, the transfer from USC, is the guy to look out for in those kind of runs. But they've unleashed Jaquez Yant finally, and he has proven that. And they've seen this since spring ball and all through fall camp that Nebraska defense doesn't like when Jaquez has the ball in his hands, because he's a hard guy to bring down, and he's going to stiff arm in. He's going to run over you. That's what he loves to do.
Basically, Michigan defense should prepare to have the ice baths ready.
Yeah,
after the game.
Yeah, that's the way he brings it, and like I said, he's got such a tremendous story as being he's from Tallahassee, Florida, from the same high school that Travis Fisher, the Nebraska defensive backs coach, is from, and had tons of SEC offers coming out of high school, but had no grades, and they worked with him, and Travis Fisher took him under his wing and got him enrolled in Nebraska last year as a walk-on. And after his performance during spring ball, he was awarded a scholarship, and it took 5 weeks or 5 games before he got his chance, and he made most of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think just hearing, I like I said, I tuned in last night to your to the show, Greg, and the similarities of both of these teams. The way I look at it is, most likely, like outside of anything crazy, I think it's going to be the team that throws the ball most effectively is probably going to be the one to win. And that'll be interesting, because I think both quarterbacks are capable, of outperforming the other. I think Martinez has a lot of potential to where he could, he's had over 250-yard games, passing, and Cade McNamara the same thing. So I think that's probably going to be what the game comes down to, because I think both teams will have some effectiveness when it comes to the run game, but I don't think either team is going to be able to run the ball the way that they'd like. And I think it'll probably be the team that's most effective through the air.
I also add in there that, who doesn't make that bad mistake, that bad turnovers. Or and Nebraska, it's a wild card every week. Is the special teams going to come through, or are they going to just make some other horrible blunder that costs them the game? So, yeah, if it's clean, if it's a clean game in both teams, it's going to come down to that passing attack, I think, because both teams are going to try to run the ball and control the ball and time of possession, and two of the top defensive units in the country, and that's what's going to be special, is to see that. And I'm expecting that kind of just a battle in the trenches and just grinded out game, and then whoever hits a home run or two is going to come out on top.
Yeah. I think for Scott Frost, this game is huge for him.
Oh,
a win, and that's not to say that Michigan, is like the best team in the conference. The king of the conference has been Ohio State. I can't stand to say it, but it's the truth. And so I'm not, unfortunately, right? So by no means am I saying Michigan is like the king of the conference, but I think, with the history, with the, both the parallels going into this game, for Scott Frost in Nebraska, not having the highs, unfortunately, that Harbaugh has had, even though it's been a roller coaster, this would be a huge credibility win for you guys. Are you picking up on that same energy there? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and the thing is, the horrible thing about this whole thing is that both Jim Harbaugh and Scott Frost have taken so much heat for things that, quite frankly, is kind of ridiculous. I mean, they're both, all they want is to win at their alma mater and make everybody proud. Scott Frost, it's been, this is season 4, and he has not had a signature win. And this one would probably check every category on everything that's ailing Husker Nation right now with quite frankly, since Nebraska joined the Big Ten, it's been a fan base that has just not been satisfied with anything. So, And if Scott Frost can't win a game like this, he's got another chance against Ohio State coming up. So, I mean, you still have that to look forward to if Nebraska loses Saturday night. But, those chances are running out here, unfortunately, for Coach Frost if things don't get turned around here.
Yeah, I know Michigan's schedule is pretty backloaded. I mean, their last 4 games is, I think they got Penn State, Maryland in there. I think Indiana and Ohio State.
Yeah, and I forget. Yeah, and I leave out Iowa and Wisconsin out of that right there. So.
Yeah.
Well, that was going to be my question. What does Nebraska's schedule look like on the back end? But it sounds like it's just as loaded as Michigan's is.
Yeah, I mean, you got Minnesota, you got Iowa, and you got Wisconsin, and you get another. You get Purdue. So if Iowa, Iowa's number 3 right now? So, I mean, yeah.
Playing fantastic.
And I don't care what Wisconsin's record is. Wisconsin's always Wisconsin. So, and you guys kind of helped out, with Graham Mertz there last night.
Yeah.
So, yeah, nobody has a good schedule coming up. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a testament to just the Big Ten, that it's
getting
not
better.
It's getting better. It's improving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even in a year where Ohio State loses to Oregon, like I still don't think anybody wants to play the Buckeyes today.
No.
So but then you also have Maryland is no longer the team that it used to be. Rutgers gave Michigan a heck of a fight. Penn State is Penn State. You got Iowa. Like it's just not. It is a big boys league for sure.
Yeah. Northwestern's down this year, but they were just in the Big Ten title game last year.
Yeah, they were West champs last year. So
so it's like there's no more gimmies, and one thing that'll be interesting to see on Saturday is Michigan has not really faced any adversity this season. Maybe small pressure going into a game, especially going to Wisconsin, because they haven't won there since 2001. And, their last 2 trips Harbaugh had there in 17 and 19 were terrible performances. But they were never down this past Saturday in Wisconsin. And I don't think they've been down any point this season, based on my memory. If you guys are able to punch Michigan in the mouth, one negative trend that Harbaugh teams have had, maybe not this year, but we'll find out, but definitely previous years recently, is when they face adversity in the game, a team that has decent talent and they find themselves down a touchdown and they had to figure out a way to claw themselves back in the game or stuff like that, they tend to wilt under that pressure. So if you guys are able to do that, I know I'll be very uneasy myself because we just haven't faced that, and to have that situation, have that kind of lingering over your head, and all of a sudden you're in a tough environment. It definitely goes to advantage home team.
Yeah, and Nebraska also, you got to think about it. Nebraska's already had 2 of those games. We're always throwing out that Illinois game, but Nebraska is right there at the end of the game against Oklahoma and Michigan State. 2 top, 2 ranked teams. So they have been playing against that kind of adversity, and they might be the more experienced team coming into this game. If we're talking about that kind of aspect of things, kind of throw out the grade. Nebraska does play a lot of young guys. But on the flip side, they also have a lot of guys that have played a lot of football too, especially on that defensive side of the ball. So, I mean, it's kind of funny when you mention that, because it sounds like Nebraska might be more prepared for a game like that than Michigan might be, since the way that Wisconsin game ended up.
For sure. Well, Greg, I think you keep your score predictions. You do those on Patreon, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
You haven't filled them out yet this week.
Okay, so we'll treat you like Kirk Herbstreit, since you're essentially calling the game. We'll remove you from it. But Dre, can you give us a score prediction for Saturday?
I'll go Michigan 24, Nebraska 20. I think it's going to be a really good game.
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty close to that. I want to say 28-24. I'm going to say Michigan. I think it originally, like a couple days ago, I was like, oh, yeah, this is 2 touchdowns at least. But digging a little more, and I'm like, I took a look at the specifically Michigan State game and Oklahoma. Even though Nebraska lost those games, I just saw what they did versus those running backs and those run games. Like, and those are 2 high quality, run games. Like with Michigan State, obviously we know the run that Kenneth Walker III is on right now, and Oklahoma runs the ball really well. So I think it is going to be a battle. Excuse me, but I think Michigan will pull it out, and I think it'll be much closer than I originally thought that the game would be.
Yeah, and I'm not going to change my prediction from our show last night. I'm picking Nebraska 24-21 to win the game. And I think the one thing that and I'm sure the Michigan coaches know this and stuff, but this Nebraska defense is something special, something that I have not seen here in a long time, since the 90s, when there was several national championships being hoisted, and this is a defense that is playing at such a high level and has a lot of talent across the board. And this is the first time since Nebraska joined the Big Ten and had to make that switch from the 4-3 to the 3-4, that they're actually playing the 3-4 defense like it's supposed to be played. And everybody gets it. There's not a single guy out there, barring one, that is a first-time starter that has not played, Big Ten football for a whole season. And they've got this thing put together. And, Michigan may have to change some things up to move the ball, and that's why I'm picking this as a lower scoring game. And I think Nebraska just, for some reason, is going to get out from behind the 8 ball and finally win one of these big time games. And I think it's going to be one of those instant classics when it's all said and done.
But one of those games we saw,
watching one of those.
Yeah. One of those games we see, when we're starting for football and before the season starts, Big Ten Classic games. One of those games, absolutely. Yep. Now, and I think one thing that I've noticed is that all 3 of us are expecting, at the very least, a very close competitive game, which is something that we all want to see.
Yes.
And quite frankly, it's historically, it should be like this.
Yeah.
And also with both coaches, the cachet they have with their programs, it should be like this. So, this should be a Big Ten title, type of atmosphere, championship one day. It should be. This is what people expected when both guys got to their position. So it's gonna be fun.
This would be if Nebraska was, say, 5-1. This would be College Game Day would probably be in
absolutely.
And I think Nebraska is playing at that kind of a level where it should be like that, and that's what I'm expecting to see. I'm not, absolutely not seeing a Nebraska team that's intimidated whatsoever. So they're a team that thinks they're better than Michigan at this point. So, and I think that's going to show on the field.
Okay, awesome. Well, Greg, thanks so much. Appreciate chatting with you, and like I said, enjoyed your show yesterday, and so we'll be on, after the game, and I think Mark talked about potentially maybe getting some crossover, but
if I don't know how late you're going. So I got when the game's over, I still gotta roll the whole. I'm on post game press conference, and then we do stand ups out on the field, and usually throw a little video out before I even leave the stadium. And
gotcha.
Kickoff time is the same time as it was last week, and I actually got out of there a little bit early last week, which was about 11:45.
Wow.
So yeah.
Yeah. We're usually about an hour after. So once the game wraps up, we're usually on for about an hour or so. So
yeah, I'll be busy. Yeah. The road game, if it was in Ann Arbor, hell yeah, I'd be around. But,
perfect. Well, enjoy the game, and we will see you. We'll see you next time. And go Blue.
look,
Take care, everyone.
you can always look for me. I'll always be in the end zone where Nebraska's facing. So,
Okay, perfect.
All right. Been looking for you. Huh?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Greg.
Yep, no problem. We'll talk to you
See
soon.
you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
That was good.
It was.
Yeah, you guys
Good.
let me know if you ever need anything.
We'll do. Take care.
All right, you too. Have a good week.
You too.